I'm Alison Donor. I celebrate my 13-year anniversary tomorrow, so that's very exciting. So that is my amazing team. We just went to Topgolf to celebrate an incredible 2019. Our score was a 3.62, I believe, so Inner Circle Elite. So it was a fantastic year, and I'm very proud of them. So let's see if I can. This is my greatest accomplishment. This is my family. That is my husband, Joe. He is actually a very successful EFS at Allstate, so we completely bleed blue. Our license plates say Allstate and Mayhem 1. The older boy in that picture turned 16 on Valentine's Day, so he now has the car with Mayhem 1. I'm just warning people. So that's my daughter, Chloe. She's 22. Cameron is 16. Casey is 12, and Cody is 8. And I spend most of my free time outside of Allstate on the baseball fields, soccer fields, and then I also have a competitive jump roper. So who knew? He has a gold medal. He's a world champion jump roper. Who knew? So, okay, so my section is Customer Service 101. Don't be a jerk. You're welcome. So, I mean, it's as simple as that, but it's not as simple as that. So let me kind of take you out of our world and take you into banking. Everybody here has probably been to a bank. You stand in line, and the teller can do a couple different things. Some tellers will be like, next. And then some tellers will be like, hey, how you doing? Come on, welcome, come up to me. And then they start like, how's your day? A teller's job is to cross-sell and to get more items in the household. If we only have the checking, they're supposed to get the savings. If there's no mortgage on the profile, they're supposed to ask where the mortgage is. Who do you think is gonna have better success of getting more business from that person? The teller that went, or the teller that was like, hey, come on, I can help you. Which one? Like, it all goes hand in hand, right? So a lot of people think, oh, well, as long as I'm not a jerk, I'm doing an okay job. I mean, you might be doing an okay job, but who wants to be mediocre? Not me. I want to be phenomenal. So that's really what we're going to talk about today, is how to not only not be a jerk, but to be awesome. Okay, so this is one of my favorite new lines, and unfortunately, when the slide went over, it got messed up. So I will read the blue to you. It says, disappointment lies in the gap between expectation and reality. So I'm going to repeat that. Disappointment lies in the gap between expectation and reality. So I sent my team a video the other day, and I said, let me explain what that means to me. If I go around telling people that we offer amazing customer experiences, if we have world-class customer service, if I say we will knock your socks off, and someone calls my office and you deliver average customer service, you have made me a liar, because I am constantly putting out the expectation that we are better. So when we create a reality that we are not better, guess what? Our customers are disappointed. So this can be everything from agents who maybe use texting for sales, but they don't for customer service. Well, if you've just developed a relationship with somebody through text and that's their preferred mode of communication, and then you shift gears to, oh, our service team doesn't text, or the salesperson is Johnny on the spot at 9 p.m. at night because they work whenever duty calls, but the service team shuts down at 5, and they can't get something they need at 7 p.m., and they're texting the salesperson, they're like, oh, that's not my job. You have a disappointed customer, for sure. So you need to make sure that whatever you're putting out there as an expectation equals your reality. Otherwise, you're going to severely disappoint your clientele. So some other things on here that people might not even think about is Americans, or humans in general, have the shortest patience of time frame ever recorded in studies. I think it's something insane, like we have like a 3-second attention span. So think about that. You have 3 seconds to wow somebody. So you don't want to answer the phone sort of out of breath or exhausted from the conversation before and then kind of get into your groove 10 seconds in because you may have already lost the person. So let me give you an example. If I just got screamed at on a rate increase and I'm just feeling so gloom and doom, I might answer the next call, "Thank you for calling Allstate. This is Alison." That's not warm and welcoming. It's not. Now, the person might be like, "Oh, hey, Allie, this is Bob Smith." And I'm like, "Oh, hey." And I've sort of recovered myself. But what if I've never talked to Bob Smith before? So he thinks, "Oh, this person doesn't even want to be here. They don't even really like their job." So I try to teach my team that every call is a new call, and you cannot let the call before bother you because this is your one chance to really make an impact. So you need to see how your team is answering the phone too. There are legitimately still customer service reps that answer at Allstate, literally. Allstate. That's all they say. Allstate. Okay, if you just want to say, "Allstate, how are you today?" that's fine, but you need to say something more than Allstate. Another thing on here is the difference in phone calls, the good, the bad, the ugly, and how to be the best. So my tip for agency owners, and even for people on customer service team, is to listen to calls. Listen to your own calls. Listen to what you sound like. I will tell you, on both sides of the fence, it's terrible to listen to calls. It's terrible for a couple of reasons. I hate the way I sound. So I'm like, is that what my voice sounds like? So if you're listening to your own calls, I'm just going to warn you now, nobody likes to hear themselves. But for agency owners, sometimes when I'm listening to phone calls, it's the equivalent of nails on a chalkboard. The awkward silences, the missed cues from the clients, the tones. I'm like, Lord help me, they must have had a breakup that day. So, but the only way your team is going to get better is if you find that phone call and then you say to that person, like, what made you so short-sighted on this call? So you have to listen to phone calls. And then when I say the good, the bad, and the ugly are obvious, right? So when you listen to them, they're obvious. But I think, unfortunately, a lot of times what we think is good is just average. I mean, a good phone call is active listening and engagement. And it's okay to use the whole button. I tell my staff this all the time. Your billing systems are complicated. A lot of times you're getting yelled at. And believe it or not, the whole button could be a great defuse button. If someone calls you and is just ripping right out of the gate, let them vent and then say, "I hear you. I absolutely hear you. It's going to take me a minute. I wasn't prepared for all of this information. Can I put you on hold?" Don't say hold, please. Say, "Can I put you on hold so I can look for a resolution?" It actually gives them a minute to calm down, and it gives you a minute to collect yourself, to get back on the phone, and hopefully have a more stable ground to build that customer service call off of. So again, the ugly ones are always obvious to us, but the good ones, you'll know it once you hear it in your staff's call. So I put this out on a couple of the Facebook sites, but since some of you probably either didn't listen to it or might not on it, I'll just give a short recap. A lady called in, and her only question was, "Can my daughter borrow my car?" How long of a phone call would that have been at most agencies? 2 minutes? Most of them? My staff spoke to a woman for 32 minutes off of that question. And at 24 minutes, she locked down a $20,000 production credit case. So she answered the question and said, these are all the ins and outs of letting someone borrow your car. But since I've got you on the line, would you mind if I took a look at your discounts? So there was no selling here. This was all about the client, all about her. And so one of the discounts was 55 and retired. So my staff said, "Are you retired?" And the lady's response was, "No." And she was like, "Oh, you sound like you're never going to reach retirement." She's like, "I won't." She said, "You know what? We have somebody on staff who can do this for free. He's amazing. He can help you set up your financial goals. Come talk to him." So she set the appointment for my EFS husband, and the lady comes in. So my husband thinks he's helping this lady with no money at all to get a financial plan together, to not be so flabbergasted by the thought of retirement. So Joe starts asking her the questions to prepare her plan, and he says, so is there anything else we haven't talked about financially? And she literally gets out a $500,000 life insurance check from her ex-husband who had just passed away. So that is my point, that she could have done a good job. She could have answered the lady's question about whether her daughter could borrow her car, and it would have been a good call. I probably would have given it a 9 out of 10. But you don't want to just be good. You want to be freaking fantastic. Because here's the thing. There are thousands of agents. Thousands. The great news for you guys is, like, 98% of them suck. So if you can be amazing, imagine the market share. We could take over the world. I mean, it is like, have you ever talked to another agency trying to get a loss experience letter or something? You're just like, whoa, who peed in your Wheaties? I mean, it is like bad at a lot of your competitors. So I am telling you, the phone calls matter. All right, so you are not likely talking to your best customers often enough. I can guarantee you're getting monthly payment calls from Billy Bob, who you know on a first-name basis, and that's great. I'm not saying that those people aren't important, but unfortunately, your best customers are probably super busy. They probably have careers that keep them busy. They might even have children or grandchildren that keep them busy, and talking to you on a yearly basis is just not on the top of their priority list. But here's when it becomes a problem. When they have a claim and they don't have enough coverage because you haven't talked to them in 15 years to realize that they have gone from working in the mailroom to now they're an executive vice president, or when their neighbor becomes an agent and they're like, how's your relationship with your agent? And they're like, I don't know, I just pay the bill. You will lose those customers. So ways that you can create contacts is you can run premium audits, and you can do, the agency owner or even like managers can call the top 100 premium paying people, top 200 premium paying people. But I would say that those people need to be a priority. And then we work my work items. We have like failed payments, premium increases, all the renewals. We call on all of those. Now, I know that can seem overwhelming, and you all might be looking at me like I have two heads. Like, have you ever seen my work item load? But the good news is most people don't answer. So the fact that you just call, and then when they call to complain, like, nobody told me, you'd be like, yes, we left a message on June 7th at 2:11 p.m. We called. So you don't have to call and say your rate went up. You can just call and say, hi, this is Alison from Allstate. I just need to talk to you about your policies. Give me a call. They're probably not going to call. It's kind of like going to the dentist. People really don't want to do it. So you can make those calls. It does seem overwhelming when you look at the list, but I promise you, because of the lack of people you're going to get a hold of, you can really blow through it quite quickly. And then e-agent. We use that a lot too. And this is probably more of a customer service monitoring thing for me. I check weekly to see how many to-dos are over a week old. You can do that in reports. And then I monthly watch the graphs of my team, how many documents they put in, how many notes they made, and how many to-dos they did. And the reason I do that is because they're relatively equal on calls, right? So if I have somebody who's done 100 to-dos in a month, and then their neighbor has only done 20 to-dos, who do you think is more likely to let an endorsement fall through the cracks? The 20 to-dos. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but some of my worst nightmares have been missed endorsements. I actually just had an errors and omissions last week because of a missed SPP update. So you want to make sure that your team is doing things right to protect your agency, and because customers don't like mistakes. I mean, I'll be honest, I just switched banks, personal and business, over a $5 fee. And when I called the manager to let her know, and I had been at my bank since, 2000, she said, why are you leaving? And I said, because I told you you charged me a $5 fee, and you said you would take care of it, and you didn't. And she said, well, I called that branch and let them know. I said, that's great, but they didn't take care of it, and I'm leaving. She's like, I'll get you your $5. I said, that's not the point. I've never asked you for anything, literally anything from that bank. And she didn't care about my $5 fee. I can guarantee you they make more than $5 off of me. So they were probably very upset. So Let me ask you a question. On this bottom left, I say emotion is what really drives purchasing behaviors and also decision making in general. That is from a Harvard professor. They say that 75% of people buy off of emotion and 25% of people buy off of statistics. So all of you are in panic mode that you can't beat somebody on price. But all the studies say that's only 1/4 of the problem. So are you missing connecting? If you're losing customers, is it really because of the price? Or did they just happen to pick the cheapest person when they went shopping because you're not connecting with them? That is really something to really think about. So are you listening to what your clients are saying, and are you engaging? So I'll use myself as an example. I just loud and proud told you guys what my greatest accomplishments are. It's my children. If you use my children, you can buy anything or sell me anything. I will buy it. Girl Scout cookie girl comes to the door a couple weeks ago. Will you buy cookies? Yeah, sure. I'm like filling out the form, 2 boxes. She's like, I'm on the bus with Cody. I'm like 12. Mason band comes to the door. Hi, we're doing a fundraiser. I'm like, yeah, okay, I think I have $20 in my purse. So your son Cameron's in my class. Let me get you a check. I'm telling you guys, I literally paid $5 extra last night to get glow-in-the-dark nails to show my 8-year-old that my nails glow in the dark. Find out what makes your clients tick and dive in. I am telling you, some people will just like melt like butter if you figure out their hot point. I mean, I honestly, I can't even go car shopping. I go and I pick out my car and then I leave because my husband knows that the minute the salesman's like, so do you have children? I'm like, oh, yes, I have 4. Let me give you my... And then I'm like, okay, so how much do I owe you? Like, I won't even negotiate. Like, if somebody be like, oh, they're so cute, I'm like, sticker price. So my husband's like, you leave, I negotiate. And then the Western music stare-off starts, and they do their thing because he's a statistical buyer. So know who your clients are, learn them. When I bought my first agency, they literally would put in this system called Impact, which most of you aren't going to know, but it's the dinosaur version of eAgent. They would put people's anniversaries. They would put their grandchildren's names. That is how intense their relationships with their clients are. We should be aiming for that. All right, so next. So I tell people all the time, openly, it's kind of my one-liner, I suck at sales. And that is okay, because you saw my awards. We do great because I'm smart enough to know I need to put someone else in charge of sales, so Elliot runs my sales team. But my job is to hold down retention so that his job to grow is so much easier. So I'm going to give you some of my data I looked up this morning. My line 10 retention rate is 92.53. My line 70 is 94.39. And my condos are 95%. So those are our 3 highest point values. I know it changes from state to state, but condos and homes for us are 25 and line 10s are 10, so, and usually there's multiples. So that's really where you want your retention to be great. On the flip side of that, when I talk about knowing who your best clients are, a lot of times people that are complaining are the same people over and over and over, right? So you sort of have to develop like a VIP style chain of command. My renters only retain at 80%. And my line 19, 61.74%. So who should we be spending more time on? Our home and auto people or our renters in line 19 who are like a revolving door? So you want to study your CSRPs and really understand where your numbers are coming from. Happy customers refer more people. It's just the way it is. Because I'm not good at sales, I'm not very good at teaching my team about asking for referrals, but we just get them. It just happens naturally. And so that is because we keep our customers happy. Happy customers leave good reviews, which drives business. I don't have my data on me, but I can tell. I feel like we wrote last year, I want to say $250,000 in premium off of Google, Yelp, and I don't have an SEO search engine. And it's because people look us up on allstate.com and see what people say about us. Now, it's not perfection. Feel free to go out there and see what some people think about me. But the key is read my response. Now, there are days that I have to retype my response on allstate.com 27 times because I'm like, oh, you son of a biscuit. Just because you can't pay your bill. And then I'm like, delete, delete, delete. But people will say, like, I appreciate how you handle difficult customers. I appreciate how real you are online. So you definitely want to make sure that you're responding to those people. And then for our customers that do leave good reviews, we write a handwritten thank you note. It goes a long way. What is your new business acquisition cost? I can guarantee you it's cheaper to keep them. Because when you keep a client, you not only keep their points, which makes your growth easier, you keep their premium. So we should be putting just as much effort into the retention on our business as we do paying for a $100 live transfer. Like, I just have never understood why people aren't paying attention to their baseline as much as they are the sales reports from corporate. Every interaction with a customer, you are reselling yourself in addition to possibly selling more products. Every single interaction. I don't care if they call and say, what's your fax number? Why? Why do you need my fax number? The other day, my staff made a mistake. Somebody called in and said, where's your closest Allstate agent? I need to make a copy of something. Now, staff gave them the address, phone calls was fine, but in my mind, it is a mistake. The client didn't even need to go to the office. They didn't need to make the copy. If my staff had just said, why, what do you need? They had been in a car accident and didn't have proof of insurance and wanted to send us a proof of insurance form, but an ID would have been fine. So in my world, my staff completely inconvenienced that client. So you've got to be your best on every single phone call. And then there's just a little saying here I like, sales are contingent upon the attitude of the salesman, not the attitude of the prospect. Guys, attitudes are contagious. If you are upbeat and energetic on your phone call, whether it's a sale or a service, most likely that person will blend with you. Now, not always, because some people are super irate and you cannot bring them down. But for the most part, it really is contagious. So if you answer the phone in a bad mood, they're probably going to come on your level. And it's like, I'm a people pleaser. So if I was on with somebody, it'd probably take me 10 minutes to finally get fed up with their huffing and puffing. And then I'm probably going to say, did I do something to you? But most people aren't like me. Like, I'm going to try to bring you to my level. So make sure that you always have your best face on when you're talking to clients. Okay, don't just focus on sales. Pay attention to what is leaving so you don't have a revolving door. I have another stat here. So when we talk about the retention numbers, I also want to talk about loss ratios. So agents can lose money if their loss ratio is out of whack. I don't know if a lot of you know that, but it's a slippery slope, and it can be very devastating for an agency. So I want you to understand that you are individual underwriters. You are supposed to be paying attention to risks when you are trying to sell somebody or when you are servicing. So, for example, the other day, a client needed his proof of insurance. Unfortunately, when he went into the other agency, he let them know that it was because he had just gotten a DUI. I am now put on notice. I will be losing 5 line 10 items, a pup, most likely a homeowner's, and they also have the equivalent on their policies in Illinois, so that agent will also lose policies as well. So you have to do that. I have to do that. He didn't wreck, he just got a DUI. So you're like, that doesn't affect your loss ratio. But it is, and it's about being fair to other customers we've turned away who had one DUI. You have to treat all customers the same. But here's some loss ratio statistics from my book. So my line 10 loss ratio is 46.37. My line 70 is 28.2. My line 19 is 98.42%. The difference between what I took in on line 19 premium and what I paid out in claims in the last 12 months is $30,000. And they are hands down my biggest headache. So when you are taking care of customers, please do not spend 57 minutes with some customer who's just spent 57 minutes with you last month and 57 minutes with you the month before because their state minimum, no collision, no coverage payment isn't good enough. You can kindly say, we might not be the right place for you. You really don't like your premiums. We do this every month. I think if it's unaffordable at this point, there's nothing else I can do for you. You should probably get quotes elsewhere. There's nothing wrong with that. I've personally said it to people. And you know what? They thanked me on their way out the door. And that's okay. Because, again, good reviews. They might not even be my customer anymore. And they might get an email from Allstate, please give her a review. And they might say, she's kind. That's okay. I'll take that all day long. I would rather be called kind than be called someone's agent all day long. So you really need to be paying attention to everything that's happening so that you aren't just treading water on your sales. Okay, this is our math section of the entertainment portion. All right, do you know how your retention affects you? So, for those that want to engage in this, do you know how many items you lose a month? If you don't, here's how you do it. Just guesstimate your total number of items in force and multiply it by the percentage that you lose. So 100% minus 90%, you're going to multiply it by 10%. And then you're going to divide that number by 12, and that's how many items you lose a month just to remain level. So for me, it's 116 items a month. That's what I have to replace just to stay level. Now, do that math again and improve your retention by 2%. How many items a month did your growth number just become easier by? If you do it again and pretend your retention is 95%, what does your monthly item loss number look like then? And I'm doing this for a reason, you guys, because not only does better retention lead to easier growth, but it will save you money. Why should the staff care about this? Because there's only so much money, guys, and the more we keep, the better your raises, the better your incentives, the better your promotions. My staff know. I mean, they know that. Like, I have a set spend amount. And so if our retention is good and I don't have to pay $100 for life transfers all 12 months, guess who's getting that money back in their pockets? They are. I actually pay my salespeople $25 for self-generated lead sources. Because if I'm going to pay all web leads $100, why wouldn't I pay my own staff? So they get $25 whenever they generate their own lead. So this is definitely, we're all in. We all have skin in the game. There's a reason why we all need to be better. So for agency owners, for every policy you save, you are saving on your acquisition costs, and you are keeping that premium and revenue on the books. What are your acquisition costs? This would be your payroll for your LSPs. The bigger the goal, the more you would need, plus your annual marketing spend and any other costs associated with bringing in new business. So let's do some math if you'd like. So for example, let's say you spend $175,000 a year for both payroll and marketing, and you write 800 items. Those 800 items generated $560,000 in premium, so you made $56,000 in commissions. Your net cost then was $119,000 for 800 items. That means each item costs you $148.75. So if you can manage to cut your growth needs down, now growth should be unlimited. I mean, you should shoot for the stars, but let's be honest. We all have an annual goal we're trying to meet, right? So that's what our spend is set up to align with. So if you can save yourself from spending $148.75 per lost item, even if you did 10 of those a month, even if you improved by 10 a month, that's $1,487.50. I don't know how many staff are in your office, but let's say there's 5, and you get to divide $1,000 a month or buy 5 of them and they each got a $200 raise, I mean, that's part of a car payment. I mean, imagine the things we could do for our staff if we could work on our retention. All right. Stellar customer service equals ALR. I do not do call nights. I'll do like a seminar because I look at it as a part of customer service, like I'm providing them a service. But I don't have cheesy taglines. It's all about the interactive conversations and what the client is telling you when you're not listening. So here are some of my numbers. So far in 2019, we have 8 IPS and 44,584 in production credit with another 15,000 pending. None of that is all state benefits. This is all from customer service. Well, 99.5% of it is from customer service transactions. In 2018, we wrote 124,313 and 51 IPS. 2017, we wrote 116,826 and 49 IPS. And it's pretty similarly consistent every year all the way back to 2006 because this is just the way I do things. So here are my tips. You must connect with people. You must connect with people. If you are typing something in to eAgent and you hear them call for their dog because they were let them outside while you were talking, be like, oh my gosh, what kind of dog do you have? I'm telling you, it's the equivalent of a kid, butter in your hands. You must listen. How many people miss out on the conversation of, hi, Sally, you have to help me with my premiums. I just can't afford it. Okay, let me see what I could do. It's a good call. The fact that the LSP said, let me see what I can do, let me take care of it, that would be a good call. A great call would be, what's going on? What happened? Well, my husband lost his job. Okay, so this is what we're going to do. We're going to take a look at your premiums. We're going to see what we can do. And then when I get done with that, I'm going to talk to you about how I can help your husband with his paperwork on his 401k rollover. Every day, people complain about their premiums. Every day. But why are they complaining about their premiums? What is happening in their life that all of a sudden your customer of 6 years can't afford their premium? So you really have to be listening for things that maybe they're not even telling you. I call it word salad. Sometimes you have to translate, is this what you're trying to tell me? And then they're like, oh yeah, that's what I meant to say. But people are embarrassed by their situations, but people lose jobs all the time, and you just have to make them feel comfortable. You must be relational and not transactional. If you're going to be transactional, you're just like Geico or Progressive. If you're going to tell people on the front end that we are trusted advisors, and that's why they should do business with us, buddy, you better deliver on the customer service side, because they will not stay. They must trust you. Do not be slimy. Do not be unethical. You might think that you telling a customer that you're going to try to do something for them is going above and beyond, but the way you say something could totally come across wrong to the client. So you really have to be delicate with your words and make sure that you're not making them think that you're doing something unethical that is then going to put their coverage into question. Because I have listened to phone calls like that before, that my staff has just chosen the wrong words and it totally sounded like we were like mobsters or something, like, oh my gosh. So you definitely have to be careful with the words you are choosing, and you must build trust on every call. You are not selling them anything. You are advising them on coverages just like you would do on their home and auto. Why life insurance is so terrifying, I have no idea. You cannot be afraid to talk about death. It happens to everyone. There is no worse phone call than your client that is losing their house because their spouse passed away a couple months ago, and to look and to see you never offered them life insurance. I had a customer who died in a car accident. His 13-year-old daughter watched him pass away, and within 3 months, they lost their home and they were homeless, legitimately homeless, living in a car. We offered that man life insurance every year for his entire relationship with us. That was the first thing I looked up, because if it wasn't there, we failed them. So you being afraid to talk about somebody possibly dying, that's in your own head. If you don't and they die and their family can't afford to get on, that's when you failed. We cannot let that happen. People are living paycheck to paycheck. If they tell you they can't afford it, use that to your advantage. If they can't afford $18.49 a month, how in the world are they going to afford their mortgage when one of their incomes goes? They need you more now than ever. Take that rebuttal and spin it. And you can have these conversations when someone trusts you. When someone trusts you and you're having a rebuttal and an educated conversation like that, it doesn't come across as bullyish. It doesn't come across as not taking no for an answer. It comes across as we are friends. I am trying to help you. I am trying to save you future heartache. That is where the trust comes in, and that is when you can sort of be bold with customers and say to them, if you can't afford this now, I would hate to see what happens if you lose income. You must focus on the benefit of your products that can bring to them in their darkest hour. Again, this is an emotional conversation. Don't let the emotions stop you from having the conversation, but instead fuel you into a very passionate conversation that you genuinely believe in. I don't care if you have to go online and do research of lawsuits, because that will actually help you in both sales and service. The 2015 numbers for lawsuits for auto accidents in the state of Ohio, the average payout was $458,610. I say that number every day. I say that number because I need people to understand what reality is. When they say to me, I have full coverage, and I say, that doesn't exist. And they say, what do you mean? I said, there's no such thing as full coverage. I don't know who started that line. And they're like, people say it all the time. And I say, yes, but full coverage means full. Everything's covered. Here's the thing. You have $100,000 per person, and the average payout is $458,610. You are short $358,610. So, do your research so that you can have these passionately charged conversations, because it will not only make you a trusted advisor, it will make you a phenomenal trusted advisor. And if budget is a problem, think outside of the box. So let's say they rebut on the life insurance and say to you, I can't afford it. Let's pretend it's $40 a month. You need to go to the auto, and you need to see, are they paying for a $250 collision coverage? Because take them up to $1,000. Because it's going to be a lot less devastating that they have a $750 higher collision deductible than it would be missing out on $250,000 on a life insurance payment. It'll be less devastating if they don't have rental and they have to pay for an Uber or borrow a friend's car than if they don't have a $250,000 life insurance policy. We have got to start thinking outside of the box. We've got to stop doing apples to apples. We've got to stop being standard. We have to be freaking amazing. Freaking amazing, not just amazing. I want people to leave and be like, whoa, that was awesome. Be like, come see me next year. So I believe that is all from me, and we're going to do a Q&A.
She said she was nervous, but didn't look nervous to me. It's not easy to get up in front of 500 people and talk, is it? You did good.
That was
you
hard.
did good.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So let's talk for a little bit, and then if you got questions, go ahead and get in line. We got a few minutes before lunch. One thing that I wanted to say, thinking about service work, it's really kind of funny. You've got some people that are making outbound phone calls, they're doing 80 to 100 outbound dials a day, trying to talk to a handful of people to talk about insurance, right? And then you have all these people that are calling you every day who already know you, have a relationship with you, have set aside time to talk with you about whatever it is they need, and people aren't taking advantage of those phone calls. And it's kind of crazy when you think about it like that you've got all this inbound activity to do the thing that you're trying to get these outbound phone calls to do, and people aren't paying a lot of attention to it. So I think you did a great job. Service is definitely, it doesn't get enough attention. People focus so much on the sales side and the sales training, and they just like, hey, let's just replace what we're losing and service will be fine. And you don't need to look at it that way. So, just encourage you to spend just as much time with your service team as you do your sales team. And also, think about the amount of time it takes to write 4 cars, a house, and umbrella, and all the interactions and all everything that goes into that. Well, you should spend this exact same amount of time trying to save 4 cars, a house, and an umbrella, right? because this is what makes your business go. So great job, and yeah, please jump up and ask them. We got some time before we go to lunch. Let's get some questions for Allie and let her talk some more.
So my question would be, when you're hiring a service person, does it matter if they have experience, and how is your onboarding process also with getting a new hire?
No, I hire on attitude. I am all about somebody's vibe, because I think you can teach insurance, but you can't teach someone to be personable. And so that's really what I look for. I mean, I'll obviously take someone with a license and experience, no problem, but it's not going to be a deciding factor for me. So the reason why I feel like customer service gets the shaft is because the training is so lacking. And it really is kind of a day-by-day process, right? Like, we can teach them the basics, how to navigate Alliance, how to look up discounts, but it really is one of those things that you have to be there or have someone else there, that when they get a difficult call, they have someone to rely on. So, for example, my team is a unity where the more seniored customer service reps, if I'm not available, will jump in and train without question, because it makes their job easier if their teammate doesn't suck. So they're not paid extra for it. It pays them back on the back end when they have somebody who's great on the team. So otherwise, they're going to just be cleaning up the problems. So it is really a daily thing. We all listen to each other. We all grow from each other. And so that's kind of, and I know that's such a bad answer because it's not really onboarding, but it's a daily onboarding. And the other thing is we learn something new every day. I swear, I feel like the RMPs change every 7 days. So if I hear somebody say something, I'm like, you got to order an inspection on an LPP first. And they're like, Allie, that changed in October. So we're listening to each other, because that's how we grow too as a community. And so because we're listening and attitudes are contagious, if I get a bad seed who's being Debbie Downer, it's going to affect everybody. So that's why I do attitude first.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, so my question is, when you get an irate customer and you offer them solutions on how to, fix their premium, lower their premiums, and they're not willing to listen to any of your solutions, it becomes obvious that they just want to complain. They're not open to solutions. At what point do you give up on that, or do you continue trying to transition that into a good situation?
Yeah, so I have 2 methods that I use. One is I actually tell people I don't have a button. I don't have a magical rate button. It doesn't exist. And I know that sounds so silly, but some of your customers think you do. Consumer Reports actually did an article about 2 years ago that said you could negotiate your home and auto rate. I could have strangled someone. I got 50 phone calls wanting to negotiate their home and auto rate. So that, as silly as it sounds, once you sort of take it off of your plate, like, I'm going to do what I have the power to do. But after that, I'm done. Like, this is all I can offer. They won't be so personal in attacking you because they realize you're doing everything in your power. So I use the button. And then I stole a State Farm method. Sorry. I know you got State Farm family. It's called Feel, Felt, Found. And what you say is, I understand how you feel. I felt that way myself, blah, 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 blah. But what I have found is that. So it's feel, felt, found. So mine usually goes like this. I understand how you feel. I felt that way myself when my homeowners doubled after I had a theft claim. But what I found was that my claim payout was still bigger than my rate increases times 5 years. My claim was handled exceptionally well, and all of our items were restored, and I had peace of mind. That is what I can give you in this situation. If I'm simply unaffordable, as much as I would hate to lose you as a customer, you have to do what you have to do with your family. But I will do what I can to keep your business. And when they get that, genuineness from you, 9 times out of 10, it will end fine. It'll end on a good call. You might still lose the customer, but you know what? That's going to be one hell of a win back in a year or 2. And that's what you guys need to focus on. Because when people leave you, don't get snotty. Don't be like, oh, I just spent 2 hours on your rate increase. No, that is a lead in a year. So always be nice to people on their way out the door so they'll come back in your door when they're mad at the other company.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And let me add to that, when you have somebody that calls in and they're like berating your staff, you should always have your staff's back, number one. Always trust them first and make sure that, you're supporting them. And when you get a hold of that customer, let them know that you're not going to tolerate that, that we're not here to take that kind of punishment. I'll take it, and I can deal with it, but I'm not going to let them talk to my staff that way. And it's funny sometimes how they're so belligerent with staff, and then they get you on the phone, it's like a whole new person. It's like that conversation never even happened, right? But I think having your staff's back when they come to you with something is really important. Trust them that, hey, they're doing the right thing, and take their side, even if it's just with the conversation you have with your people before you get on the phone. That can go a long ways, no question about it. Okay, over here.
Alison, so how many staff do you have, and do you separate sales and service, or do you have everybody do everything?
So 12 staff, and they are separated. Now, I would consider a hybrid like they did with Beth for the right person. I have someone right now that I feel like would be phenomenal as a hybrid, but that's a very rare thing to stumble upon. Most people are either service or they are sales. So it's easier to manage, but the reality of it is most people are either service-driven or sales-driven, and so that's why I keep them separated. But I know from a cash flow perspective that might not work in every agency, but until you can get to that point, you do need to start recognizing who's super strong in sales and who's super strong in service, because my staff will sometimes make up titles for themselves, like I'm out right now. So if somebody's like, I need a supervisor, okay, Jessica's our new supervisor. There's something about the transfer that happens, and one person just went ballistic about something that I didn't even do. So I told my staff, Sherry, I was like, you can call yourself Director of Client Services. I don't care. Just call her back. There's just, I don't know. You know what I mean? But pick your strong people and utilize their strengths. If you can't be completely separated, you'll know. When you start paying attention to calls and stuff, you'll know whose strengths are what. You're welcome.
Hi, is there an effective talk path that your sales folks are using to set the service up in the future and to sort of pass the baton to them post-sale?
Yes, so they do call themselves policy enrollment specialists or sales. They can choose from a couple, but they pretty much say, like, I'm a salesperson, Alison is the owner, and then she has a customer service team. It's actually like one of our sales bullets is that I'm so heavily involved in customer service. So they explain that there's a customer service team that I am a part of that will be taking care of them after the sale. And then we do have a welcome letter that we send now in lieu of agency Zoom used to do an automated one, but now we do our own welcome email, and it says in the email, for customer service transactions, call this number and email Alison. Now, I divvy out my emails, but the point is they come to me first. So if somebody emails me and says my husband passed away, that is getting a personal response from me. And that is getting a sympathy basket, and you know what I mean? Like, I can decide, an ad change card, whatever, can go over, but there's definitely gotta be a break. You cannot have if your salespeople are just selling, you have got to figure out how to get those service issues off of their desk. Because if you want them to write 100 items, they cannot continue to service every person they've written. You have to give them a break. You can't give them back all the RMBC follow-ups, all the TDOT. There's just not enough time in the day, guys. So your expectations need to meet your reality. If you're gonna have them do that because you don't have the staffing, that's fine, but don't expect your people to write 100 items if you're expecting them to service and do all the back-end sale follow-up. So.
Yeah, we even do, we have sales assistants. So once they hit 75 items or more in consecutive months, then we get them somebody to partner up with and help with that. If they're not at 75, then they probably have the time to do the other things. But yeah, you got to get that off their plate and always think about, customer acquisition is one of the most expensive things that you do. And if you have someone that's really good at it on the sales side and they're doing $10 an hour work or $12 an hour work, whether it's part of the sales process or service work, you need to hire somebody else to do that so they can do their $20, $30, $40, $50, whatever the number is on the acquisition side. So always be thinking about that. And I think setting them up in the beginning, that, hey, we've got people to help you with that is important. Also, when they call back in, someone calls back in to your sales rep and say, hey, I need to add a car on. Hey, you know what? We have someone that specializes in that. I'm going to get them over to you so they can take care of that for you right now. They do that better than anybody in the agency. So you have to delegate that work out. Just like the owner's delegating work to all the people on your team, it needs to trickle down so that people can work at their actual pay grade. That's really, really important. All right, one more question before we go to lunch.
Okay, well, thank you so much. It was great. My name is Alex. I work for Lisa Fain in Florida. I am in the retention department. And we, of course, try to be proactive on calling the customers before they get the renewal. But sometimes that backfires. Where, hi, this is Alex. I leave the message. They call back. We go over the renewal. 2 days later, we get a cancellation notice.
Right.
And we have the relationship, we know them, but we lose the account. When we review the coverages, the discounts, and the other company is cutting coverages, but still they want to leave, sometimes that is a little bit discouraging for our department.
Right.
So what's a good advice that you can give me so I can share with our service department when these type of situations happen?
So you can't win them all. It's just the way it is, guys. You can't win them all. I would rather my customer service team make the outbound call efforts and take the risk of someone leaving because we've drawn attention to them to review their insurance than to get a customer that calls me and says, what do you mean my 2017 Honda Ridgeline isn't on the policy? No one called me. And I'm like, oh, we didn't call. So I would much rather have the risk of people leaving than me being able to defend myself when something goes wrong to say, well, it looks like we called you in February and we called you in September, and you didn't call us back, because that is a much more difficult conversation than someone who leaves. And again, focusing on the win back, when they do turn in their cancellation, spinning that into a positive and being like, I'm so sorry, we did everything within our power, it's unfortunate, if you're doing that kind of effort, talk yourself up. Be like, I hope your experience there is as great as it's been here. I hope they call you to go over your coverages. I hope that they care about you and your family. But I'm going to call you in a year to make sure that that's the case.
Okay.
Don't even ask. Just say, I'm going to call you in a year to see how you're doing and to see how it's going at that agency.
Yeah. When they're the one calling, when they are the ones calling, I'm like, ooh, your new agent, they haven't called us. That's weird. We do that for our new customers. That's,
Yeah,
but
so you're
still.
already planting the seed of instability, right? And you're just building on the fact that you were freaking amazing. So, they're bound to be disappointed when they get to the other company. Yeah. So I would not stop. Please do not get discouraged. Do not allow one person who's decided to review their insurance and leave. Please do not let that stop you from all the good that's going to come out of all of your calls.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. And really, you're so much better off to be on offense instead of defense. When you're making these outbound calls and doing reviews in a proactive manner, you can head off a lot of things that will come your way if you're not doing that. And we started this years ago. Honestly, we operated for years. We're just head in the sand. The mortgage company's going to pay it. Don't worry about it. The rate increase is not that big a deal. It'll be fine. And when we started taking a proactive approach and truly reaching out to these people to try to help them, it was amazing how many phone calls were reduced for people calling in upset. We cut that dramatically and increased cross-line sales and increased retention. It was just definitely the way to go. So no question about that. Well, hey, big round of applause for Allie Donner.
Thanks, guys.